Hey guys, what's going on? Mouse here. So, firstly, I want to give a huge shout out and thanks to Uso for reminding me about this new skill that is actually surprisingly good, and I am now using it on the guild boss, and I think you guys can use it too, as well as on other game content. And I'm gonna share with you guys what it does and how to use it in actual combat. Talking about this Dagger Rush Cold Ice, which increases the damage dealt by 10% to targets within a 5-meter range. I'm now using this, by the way, and I got most of the highest scores in my guild boss using this skill, and I'm not using the breach anymore. So in this video, I'm gonna test this and let's compare the damage here. Just a disclaimer though, there won't be any conclusive evidence here in this video that would ascertain that this one will work better in the guild boss. I just know that I got my best scores using this, and it would make sense once you see the damage output and how it actually works. We will be making some hypotheses, but that's about it, and if needed, then we're gonna go deeper into it and check the numbers. And just a quick reminder, the current season of the Content Creator Program is about to end on the 29th, and all the supports will be automatically cancelled by Netmarble. So if you guys want to continue supporting me in the upcoming season, you may now log in on your Netmarble accounts and just click the extend here, and that way you're going to be able to keep your streak. And of course, you're going to receive the codes next season. And of course, you're going to help me out a lot as a content creator. Alright, thank you so much, and let's go. Alright, so we're now here in Battlefield of Trial Floor 25. We're gonna test it with Chahae-in because that's what's more important, right? The other team or other members' damage. We removed the curse set because it's gonna mess up the damage output. Only left the expert set. And for Sung Jinwoo, nothing here really that would mess up things. There you go. What we're gonna do is to apply this debuff and just check whether it's gonna work or not. So the way this skill works, you just have to activate it and something will appear around you, and the range is quite small, so you gotta be near the enemy to inflict that debuff. As you can see, there is that damage taken increase. So one of the problems when using this skill, or the challenges of using this skill, is that you have to continuously hit the enemy with this AoE, the small blue AoE here, because at the moment you step out, it's gonna disappear. So if you're gonna use this anywhere in the guild boss or whatever game content, then you gotta make sure that you're beside the enemy all the time. Now to check the damage output, we're gonna use Chahae-in here, and just to remind you guys that Chahae-in has a passive branded, which is going to increase the critical hit damage taken increase by 12%. And once we use the support skill, there are going to be 2 instances of damage, and so in order to account for that, we'll only take either the lower or the higher of the two and use that to check the overall damage increase of that skill. Alright, so first we're gonna have to check the default damage without any debuff applied, which I'll call on Chahae-in here. There you go. So we got 729k crit. Let's try more. And 247 non-crit. So let's go. Didn't crit, but that's 246. And by the way, the precision we have on Chahae-in and all of our hunters are already enough here to get 100%. So if you guys have watched my previous video, then you guys already know that you only need around 12,500, if I remember correctly, precision stat to get 100% on a level 52 monster. So I explained that in one of our videos. Let's do check that out. But anyway, Chahae-in, we got 697k and 147k non-crit. So again, there are 2 damages here, and the other one will have the branded debuff applied for some reason. So it's kind of hard to close in on the individual damage, but that's okay. We're gonna take that into account so that we're gonna get accurate numbers here. Boom. So that's 728k. So the lower end is 690, and the one with branded debuff is at around 728k. So that's gonna be enough. Let's try it with the Cold Ice Dagger Rush. Again, when using Cold Ice, you gotta be very close and make sure that it's hitting the enemy. And there we go. We got around 770k, so we're not sure if that's the higher end and the lower end, so we gotta try more. But as you can see above here, we got 269k non-crit, so that non-crit one pretty much accurately reflects the actual damage output that it does. It also affects the non-crit damage, so we're not always at 100% crit, so at least we are still getting a bit more damage from that. So let's try it again, but I think that's good enough. And afterwards, we're gonna compare it with the Dagger Rush Breach. Alright, shot, let's go. Where's the damage? So that's 271, both were non-crits. So at least we're seeing 247k to 271k that we just calculated. I'm not gonna put this on Excel anymore because I don't think it's necessary. It's very straightforward. So we got 9.7% increase from that. So pretty straightforward. So this one, I believe works similar to any other skills or debuff that says the same, like the one from the punishment, the one from Hansemi's weapon. So I'm gonna elaborate more on that later on in this video, but let's try again. Let's try to get one more crit damage. Okay, shot, go crit please. So we got crit at around 700, I think that's 797, either 797, yeah, it's 797k. So I think this is more likely the one with on the higher end of. So at least we're seeing here that the skill actually works and we're getting the exact numbers as expected. So now let's try to compare the damage output using the legendary breach. Good shot. This crit. So we got 760k damage. The highest one we got from the Dagger Rush Gold Dice was 797k if I'm not mistaken. So we're not sure yet if this is the lower damage or the higher damage with the branded debuff. So we gotta try again. Okay, boom, 734k and 760k. The lower end is 734k only, and the higher one with the branded debuff is only 760k damage. So definitely in this case where no other things are applied, no other debuffs are applied, the Cold Ice is giving more damage output. But of course, when using these skills, we also have to take into account their debuff duration. So just to check that out and to show you, we're using the Wind Dagger Rush now, casted it, and let's see how long will be or how short will be the downtime. So 4 seconds remaining, 3, 2, 1. In the case of the Wind Dagger Rush, there is gonna be a very small window of downtime there, and I think that's fine. So let's try and check and compare it with Cold Ice next. Okay, so let's check the Cold Ice. Let's go. Duration. Let's try to use Shadow Step just to keep it in place, because it's gonna run away. So 3 seconds remaining, we still got the debuff. 2 seconds remaining, we still got the debuff. And 1 second remaining, no more debuff. So it's pretty much the same as the Wind Dagger Rush, but like I said, the problem here is that you gotta constantly hit the target, because the moment you step away, you're not gonna have that debuff anymore. So in the case of the guild boss, sometimes the boss flies around, so you gotta follow it fast, use Shadow Step to close in the gap, and just make sure that you're hitting the boss properly, because there are certain weird angles that you're not gonna be able to do so. It looks like you're hitting them, but you're actually not. So at least I think in terms of the downtime, they're pretty much equal. So just to show you that it actually stacks with the Vacuum Wave, that's 839k damage, and that's 283k non-crit. Now with these two combined, you're gonna see two different icons here. Let's just check the damage. There you go, 910k critical damage. That's probably the higher one, and 308k, which is much higher, of course, than the previous one. So now to give you my thoughts on these two skills and try to compare them, I'm not gonna give you like an official testing or official damage test here, because in the guild boss, there are so many variables that needs to be taken into consideration. So one thing that you should consider here is that the breach has higher damage output. Not only that it has higher multipliers, it also adds damage increase 50% when attacking enemies with their elemental weakness. If you compare it with the cold ice, you're only gonna get 1.2k%, and you're not gonna get any other damage output aside from the frostbite here, which is gonna give 300%. It's not that much because it's a support Sung Jinwoo anyway, so I'm only getting like 50m to 60m more damage output on Sung Jinwoo alone with the wind dagger rush. But overall, I find that my hunters are getting better damage using the dagger rush cold ice. The wind dagger rush only benefits critical hit damage, so it's not gonna benefit Choi, for example. It's not gonna benefit other hunters, for example, that doesn't have the perfect 100% crit rate even on the guild boss with all those debuffs and buffs of the grid set and things like those. And the animation is also quite slow, which might actually cause you some delays compared to the cold ice, which is almost an instant activation, and you can use another skill right after. Just click it and use it, and right after, immediately you can use another skill. I'm gonna share the replay of the run as well later here. But when it comes to the exact damage output, although we saw that cold ice gave a much higher damage output, that will not be the exact damage output when used in actual combat. Because when you go into the guild boss, assuming, okay, we're just making some hypotheses. I'm probably not gonna go deeper into this one in terms of the numbers, but just to give you some ideas, if you stack more of those, just like when you stack more crit damage, you're gonna get diminishing returns from that. And that is exactly why we're not getting exactly 12% damage increase, or how much was that? 14% damage increase from the dagger rush breach, because the effect will be diminished as you stack more crits. And with the current meta lineups, you have units that have lots of crit damage on them from the grid, from their passives, especially Chahe-in, for example. So its actual value in the guild boss is going to be much lower. But the same is true for the cold ice, because we are also applying similar debuff that increases the damage taken received. And if our hypothesis is right, then it will also lead to less damage output. For example, we are using punishment in this lineup, we get 5% increased damage taken, and we are using Hansemi's weapon, which is also going to be 5% increased damage taken. We're also using Libora, which is going to be 15% damage taken from the charm debuff using her core attack. We're also using, of course, most importantly, the Moon Shadow, which is gonna be up to 45% increase damage taken with 3 stacks of Lunar Eclipse. So it's important to know that, but in my opinion, just in my estimation and based on feel, okay, although still not definitive right now, I can say more likely cold ice will result to better damage output overall compared to the wind dagger rush that we used to use. So you guys can test this one if you have legendary. If you have heroic, I think it still might be better actually by slight margin versus the wind dagger rush. But again, just a disclaimer, that's just based on my feeling, not from some actual test, but we do have some hypotheses based on the data we have, based on how things work in the game, how the stacking of the stats happen. In case you want to know exactly how I position myself or how exactly I use this on the guild boss, I'm gonna be showing the replay after this. But just do take note also that there is one problem with the cold ice. If you use the cold ice, for example, you press it and you use the ult, it's still gonna continue and gonna consume the entire duration. So you might lose out on some damage. Just make sure that you use your ult before using the cold ice, or use it towards the end of the duration so that you're not gonna waste precious seconds with the 10% debuff. Because again, you guys have to continuously hit the enemy with this. That is the only challenge when using this skill. Alright, let's go to the replay.